Microphone test 1, test 2, test 3. All right, looks like we are now live, yes. All right, let me see if the audio is working fine. Yeah, I think the audio is fine. And so good morning everybody, and welcome to everybody who's watching right now on my YouTube live stream. Again, there is no particular schedule for when I come live, but I try my best to do this more often to connect with my subscribers, connect and talk with people, right? So welcome everyone, and we will be taking questions, and if you have any requests for videos, this is the time you would do that in the comment section below. So let's get started. Couple of some notes. Well, we have been, yesterday I released some amazing videos on lambdas and scraping, right? Web scraping using lambdas. That's an amazing way to scale your web scrapers, crawlers, right? So an amazing way, right? If your scraping takes more than 15 minutes, I recommend you to essentially go to something called AWS Batch, which enables you to essentially launch thousands of batch jobs, right? If you guys have any questions, please put down your questions in the chat box, and we'll try our best to answer the question in order in which it is received. All right, so I'll be here for 20-30 minutes, and if anybody wants to join in, and if anybody wants to ask any questions, feel free to pop in your questions in the chat box, and we shall answer the question in the order in which it was received. Couple of notes. We are learning a bit. I'm personally learning and exploring about Cassandra, MSK serverless. These are some of the new things that I have been personally exploring. Oh, my friend Birendra Singh is here. Birendra says, "Hi, Saumil. I want to make a chat app using WebSockets. How do I do that?" Bijendra Singh, I would say there are quite a lot of ways to do that. First, you want to look something for what was that? I forgot. What is the database that? Oh shit! I forgot the name of that. It was a very popular on what was that? Fire. I forgot. There's a database that I think most of the people they prefer that using chat app. And if you truly want to build your own solution, I would say look for API gateway. In the API gateway, there is a section called WebSockets, so you could create a chat application with your API gateway so you could write your WebSockets, and your backend would be your DynamoDB. So on connect, on connect, on disconnect, and you have to implement all those handlers on Lambda. So I think those are the ways to go for your chat application. Firebase, yeah, I swear. I was like something fire. I was like, yeah, right. Firebase, that's correct. That's right. So yeah, either Firebase, or if you want to build your own stuff, API gateway has a WebSocket, right? And then you would use DynamoDB as your backend and Lambda as your handlers. For example, on connect, on disconnect, on whatever, all that stuff. And you have to create all your tables, right, for maintaining sessions, message IDs, and all that stuff. So yeah, I personally haven't went into chat apps. Well, I did a little bit about WebSockets. I did like Dialogflow, but I haven't really went into developing a full-fledged chat apps. Maybe something I want to do maybe later on, but I still want to focus on the AWS only. Like I want to learn the AWS ecosystem very well. Apurva Mishra is here. Hi Apurva, thank you so much for joining. Says, Saumil, waiting for Prometheus monitoring on Grafana dashboard or Flask app. Yeah, unfortunately, I was not able to get that working, which is why you don't have that video. I tried my best to download some code snippets from GitHub, but I couldn't get it work with Docker containers. I spent like 5-6 hours 2 weeks back on Prometheus and Grafana and Flask, and I had a really hard time getting that work, to be honest. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna keep this aside now for now, but I'll try my best again. I'll hop on that topic again when I get some time. But just so you know, like I did try that out personally, and I was not able to implement that, and hence I left that particular part. I would say just use Datadog. I mean, Datadog solves the purpose. But for that specific stack, I tried pre-built templates on GitHub, and I couldn't get it to be I couldn't get it to work. But I can definitely, I guess I can. Let me see if I can share that templates with you, because I know I spent quite a lot of time on that Grafana and Prometheus using Flask, and I was like, all right, I gotta keep this aside now. It's taking way too much time. All right, let me see. I think I did fork a few repository, and if I find the, let me see, GRA, yeah, this one. I'll send you this, because I know I spent quite a lot of time Apurva on that. So check this GitHub repository. I forked this repository. This guy made Docker container, and I cloned this repository. I forked it. I tried, but yeah, the graph. So everything worked fine, but the graph didn't load. So I was like, all right, let's keep this aside. I spent way too much time debugging that. All right, let's see the next question. Ashutosh here says, hi Somil, how are you doing? Hi Ashutosh, good to see you again, man. All right, I think I already have Apurva a session on Datadog, so you can, I have videos, so all you gotta do is use the logging class that I made, and you could log all your Flask logs, your Datadog. I think I already have a class. I made a video on Lambda as well. So hopefully those helper class should be good enough for you to log your items into Datadog. And remember, you don't directly use Flask app, guys. For people who are beginners, you use your Flask app either with a gunicorn worker, right? Or you use your Flask app behind an Nginx web proxy, right? So you're hitting an Nginx, and your Nginx will be rerouting a traffic to the Flask app. What you want to configure in Datadog is, and again, as I said, it's very easy. You gotta go to that configuration file, conf.d file in Datadog, and you just have to enable that. That's pretty much it. So yeah, any more questions? Pop in your questions in the chat box, please. Yeah, as I said, I'm trying to, so I tried MSK. I've been trying to get this to work. Somehow the configuration is a little weird with this. The MSK, I tried MSK serverless, MSK provision, but I had a hard time making it work. So my goal was developing a full-fledged streaming pipeline with Kafka, producers producing messages at a massive rate to the topic, and the lambdas are configured for each topic would essentially consume the messages. But I just couldn't get this MSK to work properly. I was able to make it work locally, but I wanted to try things on AWS, and I have been struggling on that particular topic or part, and there is not much good resources on that. So that's that. Then I started exploring maybe Cassandra, Keyspace, right? So those are the stuff I've been exploring. Ashutosh says, wanted to ask you, do we need Selenium if we have libraries like Beautiful Soup? The answer is yes, because Beautiful Soup is a HTML parser library, which means it allows you to parse across the HTML DOM elements. Now, if you think about it, when you go to a website, you want the JavaScript content to load, right? Selenium basically helps to load those JavaScript contents. Then you get the HTML. Then you can use Beautiful Soup after that if you need it. So to be honest, I would say you need Selenium because you will soon encounter websites. They have JavaScript based rendering, and your Beautiful Soup is not going to work there. So which is why you need Selenium. Or what is that new one people are using? Puppeteer, whatever. What is that? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, people are using that too. Selenium or Puppeteer. Yeah, something like that is there. So yeah. All right. I might also explore, I mean, I've done in the past AWS IoT Core. I might explore different ways to now get in IoT data, sensor data through IoT Core, through topic, then having it through Kinesis Stream, then building an analytics pipeline. Maybe I'll try to learn something around that side as well. I have done some work on the past in IoT, but I think that was like 2 years back, so I have to revisit those topics. Then again, we have like Redshift serverless, Aurora serverless. Everything is serverless now. You don't have to manage anything. Click buttons and your stack is ready these days. I wish there was like Elasticsearch serverless. That would be amazing. So. All right, if you guys have any questions, please pop in your questions and we'll try to answer them in the order in which it has been received. Apurva says, can you please let me know how can I set a Flask app in development and production? Presently, I'm setting it in a shell which is used by the Docker file, and the Docker. No, that's not how you use Flask. So let me just read your comment. Presently, I am setting it in a shell file which is used by a Docker file. This Docker file is used in the prod level. How have you configured your Flask? Are you doing like app.run? If you're doing that, then that is totally incorrect. That is not how you run a Flask app. It should be behind a gunicorn worker, or if not, then at least behind a nginx .conf file. So I hope you are doing that. Ashutosh says, if you get some time, please explore video demand services like AWS CloudFront for optimizing cost. If you get some time, please explore video demand services like using AWS CloudFront for optimizing cost. Sure, man, I'll take a look at that for sure. Apurva says, I'm using gunicorn for this. Okay, so yeah, then Apurva, that is the right way to use Flask, right? You have your Flask app, you have your gunicorn file, and you are essentially running in your Docker file, you're running gunicorn, then your app, and then you specify the number of workers. That's the right way to run your Flask app in production. That is correct. Vijendra Singh says, Saumil, I was able to make a chat room server application in Python sockets, but not able to make one-to-one channel. Vijendra Singh, I'm not sure I understood what do you mean by one-to-one. Would you be able to explain me a bit? Siddharth Vijan says, hey Saumil, nice to see you on IST friendly. All right, man. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. So Apurva, yeah, that's exactly how you would use it, either gunicorn or by using an nginx.conf file. Okay, so those are your two ways in which you want to use your Flask app. By the way, I also have Apurva, I have a production ready template on Flask with Swagger UI. Not sure if you have your Swagger UI, if it's a backend or a front end. I'm not sure what you are developing, but if you are interested, I'll share a GitHub repository that I use in my company. It's a production ready app with Swagger UI, right? So let me see if I can find that. Swagger, Flask Swagger. So yeah, this template that I have, one sec, my settings. All right, give me one sec. I was searching a template for you, so give me a second. Yeah, so I think this is the template that I had, and let me just verify. It has a Docker file, everything. Yeah, that's the one that I'm looking for. All right, Apurva, try to use this GitHub. This should have everything that you need. I'll also share my screen in case if you are curious. So Apurva, this is the Flask GitHub repo that I've been also using in my company. Again, has everything in the best possible way, has a beautiful Swagger UI for your backend. So you have your Docker Compose release, test.docker file, so it's a template. So app, as you can see, dev.env, requirements, everything is a very nice organized for a production ready app, right? So you have your env files, requirement, your unit test file, right? You have a template here, just gotta start writing stuff here, right? You have your release.docker file where you have your gunicorn, right? Just the way you would expect. So I hope that would help you a little bit, okay? All right. Yes, I have watched all of your videos on Flask and implemented them as well. Thanks a lot for your tutorial. All right, great, sounds good. Yeah, guys, if you guys have any questions, please pop in the chat, and I love helping people. I know it's usually impossible to answer comments. I mean, think about it. I have like 1200 videos and comments on every comments on that. It's impossible. So what I can do is at least address the question live if possible, right? So try to put your question here, and I'll try my best to share my screen right now live and explain. So and don't hesitate, right? No matter how simple or easy that question is a question. People who make fun are stupid people, right? So stay away from those people, and no matter how easy, how simple that question is, feel free to put it in the chat, and I will always explain that question. Okay, so if you have any questions, pop in the chat, okay, and I'll share my screen and try to explain you. Okay, maybe S3, Dynamo, whatever it is, just put it in the chat. Okay. Siddharth says, I just started learning Python this year, and now I'm making a backend and APIs now and building my first pet project. That's amazing. And it's serverless. That's amazing. Your videos have been great help. That's great, Siddharth. That's good. Now, here is your tip for your backend engineering. I do a lot of APIs. What makes a backend API? Number one, at least have a backend API, right? Number two, think about caching. Okay, Redis or Memcache, how can you cache your backend APIs? Number three, rate limiting your APIs, most important thing. So that now I know how to do this, so I want you to think now how would you implement. So your Flask APIs or whatever APIs you have should have rate limiting, which means if a person is calling so many times, you want to say blocked or denied. Number four feature that you want to implement in your API is quotas. Start thinking how would you implement a quotas. For example, you can only make 1,000 requests. After that, you should get an access denied. In a week, in a month, in a day, how would you set quotas on your API? If you start thinking about that, then let's start about the whole new game of security. How would you secure your API? What about authentication, HTTP authentication or JWT token authentication, right? How would you authenticate your backend, right? So these are some of the things that you want to see and learn and explore. Then scaling your API. How would you scale your API when you have massive traffic? How would you load test your API? Okay. How many users can your API serve? Your pet API, right? So once you're done with that, start thinking about this question and go deep. Once you're done with that, okay, how do I have a domain name for my API? How do I do that, right? So then think about logging in your API. Okay, how do I log my logs on my API? Datadog monitoring, Matrix. So that's the channel you want to follow. First, hello world, pets API done. Now ask yourself all these questions and go in detail. All right. Any other questions that I can explain, talk? Always happy to chat and talk here. Yeah, APIs has a lot of stuff to do, right? It's just not, there's monitoring, logging, error handling, scaling, rate limiting, quotas, authentication, caching. So all these stuff comes into place, right? Cookies, you want to store the headers, the request header. How would you blacklist an IP if somebody's like abusing your API, right? So start thinking about all these stuff. Interesting concepts, really interesting. You want to think about these. Okay, here is one thing I'll tell you, Siddharth. Then I'll take Andre's question. So say you want to implement rate limiting. How are you going to do that? So now you will start thinking, well, I need to implement rate limiting for a user, right? For a particular user. What you need to do, then you need to store every particular request header in some storage, either S3 or Mongo. Then what you want to do, you want to set up TTL. So now what you do at query, whenever a request comes, you do a count query, and you say, okay, count the number of requests that the user made. Is it greater than the threshold? If it is, block the user. That's a rate limiting feature. So start thinking about all this stuff, okay? Andres has a question here and says, I have an API gateway running with a Cognito in an Angular front end with Amplify is working, and from another front end with Amplify and the same Cognito user is logging but calling API course error. And any thoughts? Course error. Oh yeah, I know why. Because your Angular front end is running on a different domain, and then your API gateway, yeah, which is why you might have CORS issue. But I think there is a settings, right, Andres, in the API gateway which says core enable CORS, right? So if you do that, wouldn't that solve your problem? Let me know that in the chat section below. And a quick tip for that, if you're using, again, I mean, of course, you must know, when you call your API gateway, don't call from a JavaScript. Don't do a fetch, okay? Call your backend, you know what I mean, right? Code behind or server, and then make those API gateway call from that particular direction, okay? So I hope that helps, okay? Ashutosh says, use session for rate limiting. Well, yeah, as I said, right, depends how you are developing, right? I would essentially store each user request in a MongoDB or some sort of a DB, a fast database that allows me, or Redis, and then I would do a count. Every time a user makes an API request, I would do a count query and see, okay, if the count is greater, block it. That's how I would do. And I would set up a TTL on those stuff. Like, say I want to have only 1,000 requests in a day. So I would store everything in the let's say Redis. I'll have a TTL there, and then every time a request comes in, I'll do a count and I'll check, is it greater than the count? If it is, block. If not, allow. You know, simple. You know, it depends. I mean, there is several ways to implement one idea, right? That's not the only way, right? All right, any other questions we can answer today? As I said, when I did that project, like in the past, right, I implemented rate limiting using Mongo. I used to upload when a request comes in, I upload the request headers or the user agents in the Mongo, set up a TTL. Every time the request comes in, there's an if statement, there's a count, and if the count is greater, block it. If not, then allow, you know, stuff like that. But if you're using API gateway, there's a setting, just click on a button and, you know, it's done. Andre says, oh, hi, thanks. Yeah, I didn't thought about the Cognito is only allowing localhost 4200 and a different domain. Thanks. All right, no worries, man. Yeah, it might be your domain thing, as I said, right? Make sure you enable CORS on your API gateway section, and yeah, hopefully that resolves. And don't do a fetch request or whatever from the JavaScript. Make a request to your backend code behind, and then make the call from your code behind. I hope that helps a little bit. All right, guys, what else? Please pop in your questions, discussion topic that you want to discuss about. It can be anything, as I said, right? Easy, it's fine. Just put it. Don't worry about other people, right, judging you. Or for example, hey, Sawmill, how would you implement a rate limiting? Hey, Sawmill, how would you do this, right? And if I don't know, I'll say I don't know, right? It doesn't matter, right? So it's, other people are also watching live, and they'll tell you, okay, what about this? We do it this way, right? So. But yeah, start thinking about when developing a backend is crucial, right? You gotta think about a lot of stuff. People will always abuse your system, right? Security, logging, error handling, caching, all these stuff, you know. Roshan says, I have your last lab 19 scraping university reviews. That's great, man. Did you scrape some university reviews? I scraped 15,000 reviews using Lambdas. And in a matter of, I guess, what was it, 30 minutes? Yeah. Why don't you simply use request lib instead of Selenium? Well, as I said, right, I'm not sure if I think you attended the call now, but most of the time request will work, but for website that does JavaScript based rendering, your request is not going to work for those scenarios, which is why you need Selenium. And again, Selenium will work for most of the Java. Whenever any website there's a JS rendering, you need Selenium. Request wouldn't work, my friend. So yeah, web scraping is amazing. You can scrape items. You know, it's fun, man. I have done a lot of scraping, and then you can once you have data, you could do nice analytics on that data. You know. Grad reports is SSR. What is that? Grad reports is SSR. Not sure I understood that. Andre says, how would you implement a notification service for a mobile push notification? Oh, that's really nice. So Andres, I'll tell you one thing that I haven't worked more in the domain of mobile, but I do, however, know that that you would use something sort of called a service called simple notification service, right? And whenever an event is broadcasted to those topic, all your subscribers would be notified, right? Some sort of that, right? As I said, I haven't worked in the mobile domain much, but I do have expertise in the cloud. So I think you would use an SNS topic, and you would have some sort of a backend API that would basically be, all the subscribers will be, will receive a notification, right? So a topic, and then you have your subscribers, right, which will receive the push notification. But anyone who has worked in the Flutter or Android, they will be better able to tell you how to implement that. And as I said, right, mobile app development is something where not my expertise are. Roshan says, I have checked Grad Report's website, inspected the HTML, and found that all the reviews in JSON format under the script tag. Oh, that's nice. That's good. That's good. Yeah, you could just use the API now to get all the reviews, man. It's as easy as that. That's good. That's good. All right, any other questions that you want, please put in the chat. Hey, how would you implement this feature? And I'll try to share my screen, go to whiteboard and explain you, right? So if you have questions or suggestions or anything that you want, please put in the chat box, because answering comments is usually not possible for me. I have way too many comments. All I can do is I can answer questions live. Yeah, if you guys have any questions that you want to ask, please pop in the chat box about, hey, how to implement a fan out model, or hey, how do I implement this particular feature, right? Maybe you're working on a feature in a company and maybe you just want to take an advice. I'm more than happy to suggest and explain. Apurvaya says, hey, would you add a authentication to a get API in Python? Well, it depends upon the use case, right? You definitely don't want to put that API, Apurva, as a public, right? Because if it is a public, I can access this API and now I can hit as many times as I want and then crash your backend server, right? So you do want to have it under some sort of authentication, right? Like HTTP basic auth, or at least a JWT token, so that anytime you want to access any of the routes, you only do that using a JWT token. And I think I already also have a template for that on my GitHub. So let me share that quickly with you. Yeah, I do have a template for JWT token. So I'm gonna share my screen, Apurva. So hopefully this one, again, production ready template for you. Flask Nginx. It's essentially I exposed the Flask with an Nginx. And if you see app.ini, use a geonicorn. I have a test.py. Where did that go? Run.py. Yeah, I have a route basic here, right? So a login route, a verify route. So essentially, how to this can serve as a basic template to you. And of course, if you want, you can develop on the top of this, right? This is also one of the templates that I have. I'll share that in the chat box. If you are interested, check that out, right? Yeah, because I have most of the time I have templates on GitHub, right? So Roshan says, please do one video on AWS services for each role, like backend dev. Yeah, sure. I'll try that, man. Sure. Tamilua says, hello Saumil. In what scenario will AWS SQS make a lot of sense to be used? Great question. So let's talk about two things, SQS, SNS. So SQS is a pull model where the Lambda pulls the data. SNS is a push model. We push the data, right? So now when to use SQS, right? When you have a consumer, when you have a background task running, let's say you're doing on a Lambda, so if you put too many requests, your Lambdas will throttle. So a SQS queue will act as a back pressure, which means if a lot of requests are coming in, Lambda will only take 2 items at a time, no, irrespective how much you are putting inside, right? So in those scenarios, you want to use an SQS queue to act as a back pressure, and then essentially, your consumers will take messages at a leisurely pace, right? So anytime you want to implement a pull model, you'll try to do an SQS, right? A producer and a consumer model. So I hope that helps. Let's see. We have Satish here says, can trigger Lambda with code commit in AWS? So are you asking, can you trigger Lambda with code commit in AWS? Is that what you're asking? If you're asking that, I think so. I haven't tried it. I have to research, and I don't know on the top of my head, but I'm assuming you might be able to do something there. All right, please put in like questions like, hey, how would I implement an X feature? I have been asked to implement an X feature. How would you do that, right? Please put it in the chat, and I'll explain you here live. Like, hey, maybe we want to do this way, maybe we want to do that way, right? As I said, right, we were discussing about rate limiting, right? So if you have any particular feature that you are working on in the company and you want to discuss, I think just put in the comment, right, and we'll talk about it. Tamilua says, I'm currently transitioning to data engineering, and I have been interested in data architecture, especially using AWS Cloud. What topics do you think I should understand, improve on these topics? All right, that's great. So the topics that you want to master is S3, in and out. You want to know everything about S3, the object logs, then what was that? I forgot. Object logs, then basically different storage classes in S3, right? All that stuff you want to be very, very good at. Then how to query the data using Athena, right? Glue crawlers, ETL, that's something that you want to learn and master, right? You want to learn and explore Lambdas, SQS, Kinesis data stream, essentially all the items that you would use for data, right? These are the DMS. These are the components that I would essentially focus on. Mr. Banerjee here says, I want to learn Elasticsearch for work. I'm new to Logstash and I'm getting data from servers. Where to learn? I'm not understanding. Well, I have some basic tutorials for Logstash. It's not really difficult. It's super easy, nothing crazy. All it does is there's a conf file and then you just write your settings there. I would say start with Hello World tutorials and then try to understand on Elasticsearch as well. Depends again on which Elasticsearch you're using. Things have changed in Elasticsearch 8. If you're using the older version, things are a little bit tedious because you have to set up conf files and then you have to essentially implement all your settings in your YML file and then you have to run it. So I would say go to their official website, start with the Hello World labs, and then as you encounter issues and errors, post it on the Stack Overflow, GitHub, or there's an Elasticsearch community, post it on there. Those are the places where you can learn these concepts well. Try to watch YouTube videos, try to take courses on Udemy, LinkedIn. So these are some of my advices for you. It's easy, man. It's not difficult, man. Logstash is very, very easy. It's just an ingestion tool, man. All it does is just define some input, some output, and then do some transformation, and that's pretty much it, man. It's not at all difficult at all, trust me. And then we just gotta learn about some settings here and there, and that's pretty much it. Roshan says 0.00015 per GB second overages. Not sure I understand. What's the question, Roshan, you have? What is this? I can't understand. Well, I can't understand either what you are saying. This one, 0.001. For which one? Is it for some price or what exactly is that? What is this? I can't understand. Lambda pricing model. Well, uh, I don't know what you are reading. There's a various Lambda doesn't work that way. Lambda basically charges you based on how many minutes you execute, how much memory you use. So those are various parameters on which you are charged. So there's a website called there's a cost calculator. Go input your parameters on the Lambda, and then you will get the cost estimate. Ideally, it's pretty cheap. It's about only $1 or $2 for a million requests. So I wouldn't too much worry about the cost on Lambda. Andre says, I would like to implement a basic fault tolerance multi-zone Elasticsearch, fault tolerance multi-zone of Elasticsearch for an API search at a low cost. What would you recommend, AWS, Elastic, or self-hosted? See, this is very tricky now because cost is a big thing when implementing Elasticsearch. Now, you wanna go multi-AZ, but at the same time, you don't wanna maintain all these servers. It's tedious, bro, to SSS into everything, then managing software patches, increasing the capacity. I would say go for AWS. Okay, first and for go for Amazon Web Services. Okay, then for your APIs, since you're developing a search, I think again depends upon your use case, right? I would really develop something on cloud only. You can develop your APIs in Flask, Swagger UI, and deploy that on ECS and put auto scaling on that, right? Essentially expose your ECS endpoints through a Route 53. And that would easily take care of that part, right? If you're looking for serverless solution, API gateway Lambdas are your way to go, right? So that's really it in terms of stack. Elasticsearch has all the caching. It has a node level, shard level cache, so you don't have to worry about caching there. You don't need a memcache or a Redis there, right? So Elasticsearch will take care of that. So I would say an ECS, Flask API with Swagger running on ECS should be fine. If not, you can go for API gateway Lambda, right? Looking for authentication, use Cognito or JWT or simple HTTP authentication. These are your options. Roshan says, how can I measure memory usage for my program in local? How can I, you mean like a Python app that's running on a computer? Is that what you mean? You can use the sys module in your Python, and you can see the memory usage, how much you're using. So it's pretty easy. Just do a Google search, I would say. So most of the time, there's a module in Python. So just I think there's a library called Memory Profiler on PyPy. Maybe look into this one. This will help you. Yeah, it should be easy, man. These are very simple ones. So just memory, you can either use sys or either you can use any built-in Python modules on PyPy. There are so many of them, man, for memory profiler. Just use any of them. It doesn't matter. As far as you get the answer, then that's pretty much it. Yeah, there should be plenty of them for memory profiler. I'm pretty sure. Let me see. I'm also seeing that I sent you one of them, so maybe, and here is an article that shows top 5 memory profilers for Python. So try to read and look into this. When are you going to teach us AI ML? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to really go into that domain, although I can. That would be really, that's again a niche domain. Although I have worked a lot and done a lot of work on that particular section, I have used SageMaker notebooks. I've made converted machine learning models into an API. I've done all that, but I really don't want to go into that direction, to be honest. I want to stay in the domain of search. I want to stay in the domain of data. I want to stay in the domain of backend. And I want to avoid front end as much as I can, and mobile domain. These are the domains that I want to avoid. AI ML, I can, but again, it's a complete new field. Then again, then all you gotta do is just look about models and different SageMaker, this, that, deployment. I can do an overview if you want how to deploy stuff on Amazon. That is something I can do, but I don't want to go into depth for sure on that particular topic. All right, guys. I think it's been fun. Yeah, please ask me your questions. Please ask how do I implement the next feature? How do I implement a Y feature? I'll be happy to do a whiteboarding live session with you right now. And yeah, let me know. I still have 15 more minutes for my office hours. So if you wanna ask or if you wanna explore, okay, how do I, would implement ABCD or XYZ or data lake, or how was your data lake strategy? How would you do an ETL, blah, 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 SQS, Lambda? Put that in the chat box and we can talk about it. Please put down your questions that you have. If you're working on a particular feature in a company, which you usually most of the time people do, right? You're either developing a new feature or releasing stuff. And if you want suggestions here, let me know. I'm more than happy to provide it. Again, I'm not going to charge you anything. Yesterday, I did connect with 2 people, and again, I helped them. Of course, I did not charge them anything. I do this because I love to, because I learn here from all other people as well. So yeah, if you have questions, please just pop in the chat box, and we can right now do some live whiteboarding or brainstorming, however you like. Okay, so let me know. Why would you want to do a YouTube uploader? Google already has an APIs to upload videos, so I don't think it makes sense to do through Selenium. I mean, why would you do through Selenium? Please explain me if you don't mind. It doesn't make sense, first of all, to do through Selenium. Yep, messages will be delayed by 60 seconds in the chat box. They are not live. That's because people, I don't want people to flood the chat box with pretty fast. So there's a settings that I have enabled. So yeah, I think I have, yeah, I have disabled that. I think slow mode is disabled, so it should be fine. Oh, what happened? Yeah, so you can increase the quotas from Google Developer Console, right? I don't see a reason why you want to do through Selenium. Why would you want to do through Selenium? Please explain. Okay, so but again, why would you not want to use an API? I mean, I don't think like Google won't allow you to upload just 6 videos, right? There must be some settings, right? You just need to read the documentation. Yeah, it should technically allow you to upload more than 6 videos through an API. Maybe I know you're trying to implement some automation. I'm not sure what exactly your errors are on Selenium. Of course, Google will block you because you have to sign in with your credentials first, and then you have to click on upload and then wait for that, right? So depending upon the use case, I would really use the API first. Read the documentation thoroughly on their website, and then put this question in the Stack Overflow and ask people that, hey, is it only 6 YouTube videos I can upload? And if the answer is yes, then you can look into solution for Selenium. As I said, I wouldn't really look into Selenium first. I would look into APIs that allows me to upload videos, right? All right, I think we are nearly at the end of the time. I'll take 1 or 2 more questions, and then I would conclude today's session. 1 or 2 last questions, and we should wrap up for the day. Siddharth says, I'm trying to implement a feature on my pet project where the user can search let me read this, where a user can search if a username is available and it auto updates instantly if the name is available, like while we are signing up Gmail. Wait, let me try to understand. I'm not sure I completely understood what Siddharth you're saying. I'm trying to implement a feature for my pet project where a user can search, okay, when a user can search if a username is available. Oh, I know what you're doing. So you wanna see if a username is taken or not, right? Okay. If a username is available, and if a username is available and it auto updates instantly if the name is available, like while using sign up. All right. So Siddharth, what is your question? Do you want us do you want a suggestion on how you would implement that? More than happy to explain you that. So ideally, again, you need, so I'm assuming you will have some sort of a table where you're storing those usernames, right? So when the user types in a particular name, you want to go to the backend and see if that particular name exists. If it exists, you just want to return a flag, true or false, right? So you're gonna query the database with that where clause, and if it has it, if it has it, then you essentially return true. If not, then you return false. And then based on that flag on your front end, you determine username is taken, username is not taken, right? So I would do something like that. I hope that helps a little bit. Rahul Pandey says, how can I read a big CSV file from AWS and return that data with an API? You can't return the big data. You can't return that massive file with an API. That's simply not doable. You have to do, you have to implement a pagination, right? You have to store that data in some sort of a data store, either again, DynamoDB, Redshift, Aurora, or any other database, and then from there, you need to return data from an API in a paginated manner. You can't simply return that massive amount of data in a JSON. There will be a limitation, which is why I said you need to implement some sort of a pagination system there. So I would store that CSV, whatever that is, in a Dynamo table, DynamoDB, NoSQL. Again, Dynamo has a row limit, right? So it would not be a best appropriate choice. You might want to store it on some sort of a database, and then you want to return those data in a paginated way using a SQL by passing a page number 1, page number 2. That's how it's done usually. Andre says, when you are going to explain about securities of APIs and Cognito with advanced feature, I might have to dive in deep. I have a basic tutorial, Andres, on Cognito. I hope that helps. I'm not planning to go deep like in advanced feature because if needed, I could maybe do a video, but at the current moment, I'm not planning to do a deep dive on advanced feature on Cognito. Siddharth says, I was thinking that this would be a good use case for Redis. I'm just curious. What direction do you take? Well, you could see the reason I say not to put in Redis, like username is a very sensitive thing. What if that gets breached, right? Now you're just screwed, right? Because all the usernames were leaked. So, which is why I said, if you want to implement a feature, whether you want to see whether a username exists or not, make sure you implement a proper authentication on the API, and then essentially make sure that your API, make sure that you're validating that people are not passing like star and other like crazy arguments, right? Make sure it's a legit alphanumeric characters, right? Validate that using a regex, and once that is done, you can make a call to the backend to see if the username exists, and if it exists, return a true or false. So I would say something like that. Because in the Redis, then you have to keep all the username. Anytime a user sign up, you have to update the Redis and the database, right? You could do that. I'm not saying you cannot, but I'm assuming if you have a very low traffic, I don't think you really need a Redis for that. Rahul Pandey says, can we read a big CSV file from stored in S3 in chunks? Yeah, why not? I don't see a reason why you won't be able to read file in chunks, but that is something in your Python application you have to do, right? Now, as I said, right, you have to maintain row pointers, right? So you have to use something like PyArrow or some sort of library that will allow you to read data in chunks, because your files might be 10 GB, 4 GB, and it would simply wouldn't work. As I said, right, a better way, as I said, store it in some storage and then go from there. Or if you really want to do that way, you might, again, as I said, right, have a Lambda API gateway and return like first few records from your pandas. But again, as I said, right, you might have to use layers, pandas layers and pi arrow, whatever that is, and then let's say the use. So now, so here is the. Let me share my screen. Let me explain you. Hold on, I'll explain you how. You cannot. Really depends. Let me do a whiteboarding for you. So I'll explain you what I'm trying to say. All right, this takes forever. All right, so I'll tell you the architecture here. Here is where your large files are, right? So this is where you have your large files, right? So assuming like let's say there are like several hundreds and thousands of files, right? What you want to do, if you really like, again depends upon the use case, right? So if you are looking for something serverless, go for API gateway. You can make an async request. Depends again. Does the user wants to get data real time, or does the user doesn't want to get data real time? I mean, what I'm asking is, does the user have to wait? Is it a synchronous or an async call? If it's an async call, what you could do. So here is my architecture for you. So whenever a user makes a request for a data, you basically put them in the queue, and what you do is so here is a user who maybe wants to get a data. Again, as I said, right, if it's a sync or an async architecture, depends on your use case. I'm showing you an async architecture. Say the user wants, let's say, all the data by whatever, let's say user is like Timothy or whatever that is, right? So do one thing, like now return a token to the user back, right? This means that you have received the request. Now what you want to do is you'll have your Lambda function, which will is gonna take the request, and then now you can do is you can if you have a glue, you can fire up glue jobs, right? The glue will essentially take the data from your S3. It will do whatever your transformation or your data is. Now do one thing is now god damn it, it's very hard to. Okay, now after that it's gonna dump the data to another S3 file, right? So once you have the S3 file, right, now what you can do is the user so let's say you return 1 2 3 4 5 6 this is a token that you return to the user, right? Now when you are storing that file on S3, you can say 1 2 3 4 5 6 dot JSON, whatever that is, CSV file, right? Now the user can go and essentially download that particular file from S3, right? So what I'm trying to show you here, or what I'm trying to bring to your attention is, let the user make the call, right? Store the request and return them a token, and then kick in a serverless workflow, an ETL job that is gonna, take the user request, let's say whatever filter command the user has given, do that through Glue or Athena, whatever that is, then store that particular record onto the S3 with that particular token as your key. Now the user can again now directly go and see if that particular token is like the folder is ready or not. Again, you can develop suite of APIs. If the particular folder is ready, then user can go and download each of the file manually through S3, or you can have APIs depending upon your use case, right? In your Glue job, you can always make sure to convert that big files into small CSV files, right? So you can always let me put this here. So in the Glue job, you can convert big files, right? You can convert big files into a small files by using coalesces or by changing the number of partitions. So I think it's really doable. I don't see a reason why. Again, depending upon your use case, how you guys are. Let me get to my YouTube stream first. Again, depends upon your use case, what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to build a sync model or an async model. It's a sync model, then the user needs to wait for the data. Then you have to implement some sort of a job that is going to read only particular items, or you can kick in AWS batch jobs, or depends, again, as I said, right, from your use case to use case, right? But as I said, right, you want to approach something like that, right? If you have massive files and if you need to return that to the user through an API, you have to do a pagination. You can't return that entire big file as a JSON. There's no way. What you can do is you can return a key of that particular file to the user, and then the user can use some sort of an API to get data in a paginated way. So he makes a call one by one, something like that, All right. Oh, there are a hell lot of questions. So what I'm trying to say, I'll just answer Rahul's question since I did touch upon this topic briefly. Okay, you have big files and you need to return that to the user. Option number A, store it in some database and then return the data to the user in a paginated way using SQL, right? They'll pass in a page number and then you essentially scan like this, right? So you do that, right? So in that case, you have to maintain a count. You need to know the count, and then let's say the user says page 1, so you'll say 0 to 9, then page 2 will be 9 from 9 to 20. You do that, so you have to store it somewhere in a database. If you don't want to store that, you can do an async job, which means when a user makes a request, again, I don't know what your use case is, you can put that request on SQS, and from there you can fire up a Lambda will fire up a glue job will do the transformation, and it will store the file on S3 with the token that you gave to the user, and then the user can directly go manually on the S3 and download the CSV file or whatever, or you can even dump it on an FTP server where the people can download that, right? Again, there are a lot of ways in which you could make this thing work. As I said, option 1, database, return in a paginated way. Option 2, async, return a token to the user and just store when the file is processed, give the file name as a token so user can go and download. Option 3, dump this data on the FTP server so user can go and download all the CSV file. What else? Yeah, those are your options. I hope that helps. Wow, there is a lot of. I won't be able to take that many questions. I'll take one last question and then I'm gonna wrap up today's session. Okay. I'm trying to implement a project that does something like LinkedIn employee analysis for companies. My plan is to receive a company name through an API, and LinkedIn does not have an API or option. Well, web crawling, I'm not sure about Lambda work. If the employees in the companies are 1,000, I'm thinking to spin up an EC2 instance. Might have to read your entire use case. I'm trying to implement a project that does something like a LinkedIn employee analysis, okay, for a company. My plan is to receive a company's name through an API, and LinkedIn does not have an API to do so. Of course, they are not going to give you the data. Web scraping, I'm not sure if the Lambda will work if the employees in the companies are in 1,000. I'm thinking of spinning an no, you don't want to do EC2 instance. You want to look into something called AWS batch jobs. Batch jobs will allow you to spin thousands of on-spot Fargate instance, and you could run the job for maximum. I guess it was 5 days. I am not sure, but yeah, you want to use for batch jobs, not EC2. Collection of the data about employees in the company. So I want to add machine learning to go something to gender prediction and ethnicity prediction. What do you think? It is a personal project, so I will want to reduce the cost by a lot. Yeah, first of all, you need the data. So first, try to gather the data. Try to implement for one company. There are websites where you can buy the data, right? If you don't want to scrape, there are people who sell data. So you can purchase the data and then implement that use case. If you want to do scraping, it would take time. Develop your own web scraper. Again, all these things is not going to come free. You have to use AWS and all these services, which is very soon going to add cost to your project. Okay, if it's just soon like a hobby project that you're just doing for fun, implement on a computer for one or two companies, and that's it. But if you want to do it for thousands of employees and you want to scrape all these data, it's going to come at a cost and it's not going to come cheap. So yeah. All right, I'll end up today's session. It's almost 11 o'clock. Thank you so much for all your questions. Rahul, I hope I especially touched your topic in brief, and I hope you do understand how to implement that particular logic. If you have large files, remember, you can't return, because remember, there is a limit to which you can. What I'm saying is there's a limit on which the API can return the JSON data. You can't return like a million objects in a JSON objects, right? Have to do a pagination, right? You have to store it on some temporary location, divide it into some, divide it into smaller files, or essentially write a glue job or store it in some database and return the data in a paginated format. Okay. That's it. We're just gonna read the last question from Jaya Raju, and then I'm gonna end the session. Can you do a video on Logstash integration with JMX? I'll try and put that in my to-do list, and I'll try my best if I can do a session on that particular topic. All right, thank you so much. That is the end of today's office hours. Thank you so much. I hope I have answered everybody's question, and if not, I'll try to come live maybe next week or late in the evening, and you can always put down your questions. And once I get time, I'll always get back to you. Thank you so much for watching. Keep smiling, keep programming, stay safe, stay healthy,